My name is Michael Longfield. I'm the Executive Director of Cycle Toronto, and I am super stoked and excited to be making my Toronto Mike debut.
What up, Mike? Toronto. VK on the beat. Check. I'm in Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm from Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm in Toronto like we wanna get the city love. My city love me back for my city love.
Welcome to episode 1861 of Toronto Mic'd, an award-winning podcast proudly brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery. Order online at greatlakesbeer.com for free local home delivery in the GTA. Palma Pasta. Enjoy the taste of fresh, homemade Italian pasta and entrees from Palma Pasta in Mississauga and Oakville. Visit palmapasta.com for more. Fusion Corp's own Nick Iones. He's the host of Building Toronto Skyline and Mike and Nick, podcasts that you ought to listen to. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Committing to our planet's future means properly recycling our electronics of the past. And Ridley Funeral Home, pillars of the community since 1921. Joining me today, making his Toronto Mike debut, from Cycle Toronto, it's the Executive Director, Michael Longfield. Michael, why are you not Mike Longfield? Why Michael Longfield? I need to know off the top.
That's my mom. A kid grew up in the 70s. I think like when I was born, it was the most popular name for kids.
I can speak. It was the most popular name in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s for males born in North America.
80s as well. I didn't know that. Yeah. So I think just for some differentiation, it was Michael, not Mike. But my cousins, a few of my high school best friends still call me Mike, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, I got to ask the tough questions on this program, Michael. And as a fellow Michael who decided I was more comfortable being a Mike, I'm always interested when I meet a Michael and I think, maybe he wants to be taken more seriously.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a very serious job, of course, bike advocacy. So, you need every advantage you can get.
Absolutely. We're gonna cover it. But first I'm gonna who's the guy who used to analyze celebrities' wardrobes? Do you remember this? Back in the 80s, there was a guy who would he would show up, something black maybe. I got to look up his name. Maybe somebody on the live stream. I remember he'd show up on Entertainment Tonight and he'd criticize can you believe this celebrity was wearing that dress to this event or whatever? Do you have memory of this?
I don't. No, not that one.
Okay. I don't. And Blackwood, I'm going to look it up while you tell us about two things. One is, let's start with the hat. What hat are you wearing?
Vintage Montreal Expos baseball cap.
And you told me just before I pressed record that you spent some time in Montreal. Is that correct?
Yeah, I did. I spent a bit of time in the 90s in Montreal after the lockout. So the a couple years after when Montreal was making that incredible run, they were the best team in baseball. It looks like they were
94
in the World Series. Yep. And then so was there in Montreal after that, after the city's heart was broken and the Stade would be, oh goodness, pretty empty game after game, but it was just, incredible atmosphere, incredible vibe. And, Montreal's just, banger city. So it, happy to be wearing this hat and, eventually we'll get Montreal or baseball in Montreal again.
No, I don't want to sound like a broken record on this program, but when somebody mentions Montreal, I now feel I'm obliged to tell the world that my daughter lives in Montreal. So, and I'll be there late May for her convocation. She's graduating from McGill and I can't wait to make this trip.
Oh, congrats, yeah.
I want to ask you about your t-shirt now. So you're wearing a Cycle Toronto t-shirt. We've got some trash pandas riding bikes.
Yeah, so this is one of our Cycle Toronto t-shirts. This was designed by one of our staffers, our organizing manager, Caitlin. And, she's responsible for, again, a lot of the organizing that we do and that sort of thing. But she has in her job description as well, raccoons as required. So does a lot of this graphic design stuff. It's a lot of fun.
Love it. Very cool t-shirt. So I need to ask you because you were running a bit late.
Oh, boy.
And you were blaming the TTC.
Well, I mean, blaming the TTC is maybe a strong word. I was explaining the TTC. Yeah.
Okay, that was the reason, but you weren't putting blame on the TTC.
No, they're trying. They're trying.
The natural question I have is, you're such an advocate for cycling, and we're going to get into it, but why did you not bike here today?
Oh goodness. Well, because I'm still recovering from a broken leg, so I was doored back in December. 2024, and broke my femur.
And you're still recovering.
Still recovering. Yeah, it's not progressing quite as well as we had hoped. So I was back to commuting a little bit last summer, but while the weather is a bit iffy, and especially while there's still, ice and snow out there, I'm playing it conservative.
Well, the good news, Michael, I can tell you, I just took a ride to Trillium Park, and I can now tell you there is 0 ice and snow on these trails right now. I think the weekend cleared it all out.
Yeah, it's definitely looking promising. So I'm hoping, a couple weeks I'll be back to it, but yeah, not now, sadly.
But do you mind? I should knock on wood, except I don't believe in jinxes. Like, I just don't believe in it. So I refuse to walk on wood, and I don't know what this IKEA table is actually made of, Michael. I'll be very honest with you. But could you tell me about this dooring incident? I've never been doored. But I just assume every car I pass, I just assume that door is going to fly open.
Well, that's a great way to be riding, is to assume that. Firstly, I'll say I don't recommend it. So, if you have a choice,
I'm going to cross it off my to-do list.
Yeah,
don't get doored.
Yeah, you don't need it on a bucket list for sure. If it hasn't happened to you, don't. But yeah, this was like, early December, 2024. Was riding my bike. I was actually riding on St. George, which has a painted bike lane. Yeah. At the time, University Avenue was there was construction there. They're doing the TTC station, and so the cycle track was all like torn up. So I took a detour on the painted bike lane rather than the protected bike lane. And while I was biking past, someone, rideshare slowed down in the travel lane. Person got out the back seat. They opened the door into the bike lane.
They don't even look.
And pow, I was down on the ground, broken leg. Well, don't recommend it.
This is a good time for me to ask you, because I ride Royal York. I have trouble saying the words Royal York. Yeah. It's hard to come out of Royal into York. But I ride Royal York a lot because it's really my only north-south artery in this neck of the woods. And it's a painted bike lane.
It is.
Am I safe? And is there any point? Like, is there any safety at all in a painted bike lane?
There's mixed research data on this. Conclusively, though, I if you're on like an arterial road, the best practice is having a separated bikeway. Sure. So, you could make the argument, is paint better than nothing? There's a lot. But
is it? Because I know what are those?
Sharrows.
Yeah, I heard the Sharrows are worse than nothing.
Sharrows are really not great. Sharrows can be good wayfinding for like neighborhood routes, but like as infrastructure, they're not exactly awesome. I ride the painted bike lanes on Royal York too when I am riding, because it is the only north-south. Yeah. I personally feel slightly more comfortable because they're there, but is that just perception or reality? Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I feel more comfortable because they're there. Otherwise, I think I just take Islington or something but I take Royal York because there's painted bike lanes there. But I just thought you mentioned painted bike lanes. I thought I'd ask. So I want to say hello to everybody on the live stream. You attracted quite the crowd, including a gentleman named Marcusor. And Marcusor is the chap who said you need to have Michael Longfield in the basement, and he's the one who kind of connected us back in the day.
I know Marcusor by his non-handle.
You don't know him as Marcusor?
No, it's just strangely
that's his TMU handle. Yeah. Okay, but he also got doored.
Yep.
And Marcusor, he says his hand is permanently mangled.
Yep.
And he's glad he's left-handed because I'm guessing it's his right hand that's mangled. I gotta be careful when I shake that hand of Marcusor now that I know he's got a mangled mitt thanks to being doored. But can you tell me about the leg injury? Because December 2024, that's a long time ago. So, like, what are you able, like, tell me, like, what's happening with that leg that you're still feeling it?
Oh, goodness. Yeah, so, this is
take off those pants. Let me see what's going on down there.
I've got a brace on right now. I'm
that's
going back to the surgeon, this Friday to sort of see how it's going. I can walk and I can kind of pedal, but still experiencing a lot of pain, don't have full range of motion. Jeez. And it's just not great. Part of it is, the human body doesn't like being thrown into pavement at speed, I guess. That might sound weird, but apparently it's true. And, I'm not as young as
How
I used to be.
How fast were you going?
Not commuting speed, like, 20? Yeah, 20-ish kilometers an hour. Yeah.
And it was just you against concrete?
Me against car door and concrete.
Car door. And so did the leg break when it hit the concrete?
Oh, it sure did, yeah. It was, I had that
I've broken bones hitting concrete on bike crashes, but broken femurs sounds pretty awful.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome, yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry to hear this, my friend.
The good thing is, we might talk about this later, is it ended up being part of a good part of a good news story because at the time, Cycle Toronto was about to launch a legal challenge against the province for removing bike lanes. And so, we had, case in point of why we need protected bike lanes and not just paint.
Okay, I like the fact you said we might talk about it later. Could you imagine we didn't get to that? Like, can you imagine I forgot to ask about your
there might be more
court
interesting
challenge
things
here?
to sort of talk about at this point.
We could talk about the expos.
Yeah, I know.
Lots to talk about. So let's do this. I'm going to get to that in a moment. Why don't we find out, maybe you could tell the listenership, what exactly is Cycle Toronto?
Sure. So Cycle Toronto is a member-supported charity. It's been around since 2008 in the city of Toronto. It was originally the Toronto Cyclists Union. Some folks are still particularly fond of that name. And basically, we're a group, again, comprised of members, folks who live in the city and are just, here to tell the city of Toronto we support, better cycling infrastructure, doing more to, boost the culture of cycling in the city. And it's really a grassroots organization, despite us sometimes being portrayed as, the big bicycle lobby. I mean, goodness, I wish I was making a lobbyist salary. It's ultimately, we're here representing the folks, the regular people who just, want to be able to ride their bikes and want safe places to do it.
I love all of this. I mean, what time is it? I've done 2 rides today. I'm at like 42K, and
nice.
It's 225, and I have one more ride left to do later.
Jealous.
But it is I will say, it is a beautiful day.
It's fantastic.
And we had a tough winter, as you know, so it just feels amazing out there. So I love all of this, but how do you become executive director, Mr. Longfield?
Oh goodness, how do you?
Like, what is it? Like, I have no idea how this works. But you are the executive director. That's a pretty big title over there at Cycle Toronto.
Yeah. Goodness, how do you become executive director of Cycle Toronto? It starts by, I guess in my case, starts by having been a Cycle Toronto member for, 15 years at this point. I first joined the org back in 2010 when Rob Ford was elected mayor, and him and Don Cherry gave that the war on the car speech.
The left-wing Pinkos.
Left-wing Pinkos. And I think like that day I signed up for a membership. So have been in kind of the ecosystem for a while, and then was doing some volunteer work with the Ontario Cycling Association, president of a bike club, a lot of overlapping space, and eventually an opportunity opened up with Cycle Toronto, and here I am.
Well, I hope Marcus Orr is not embarrassed by this. He's on the live stream here, but I'm going to read the email that made this episode happen, okay? And then we're going to get to the meat of it all. This is what Marcus Orr wrote, okay? Right. You're both fierce cycling advocates, and it would follow others that have been on, such as Lanrick Bennett Jr. Do you know Lanrick?
I do know Lanrick, yeah. I was listening to the episode earlier today.
Okay.
So when you said Royal York, I was like, yeah, you guys spent a lot of time over the pronouncing Royal York, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, this is because I am consistent. And I still struggle to say certain things. Can you say the word brewery?
Brewery?
Say it again.
Brewery?
I think that's right.
All right.
I think you're a naturally gifted orator. But Lanrick Bennett Jr., he was the bicycle mayor of this city. And Alison Stewart, who came on as well. Was Alison Stewart executive director of Cycle Toronto?
She was acting co-executive director.
Acting. Okay, I got to keep track of all you cycling advocates here.
And she's currently the bicycle mayor of Toronto.
Yes, she is.
Yep.
Okay. Maybe I should be the next bicycle mayor of Toronto.
Hey, the term's 2 years.
What's that process?
So reach out to Allison and sort of see about that. It is a 2-year term. So her term's coming up soon, I think. So
I hear it's lucrative.
Oh yeah, just like being president of the bike lobby. You don't know what to do with all the money that's rolling in.
That's funny.
Yeah.
By the way, brewery, because you said brewery correctly, I'm just going to let you know right now, I'm sending you home with fresh craft beer from Great Lakes Brewery.
Fantastic. Love Great Lakes. Love the Octopus Wants to Fight. I can see one in front of me. Yeah.
That's the light. So there's this one is actually the interesting thing. This is called Fighting Weight Octopus, and it's the Octopus Wants to Fight, but lighter. So you can have a couple without slurring your speech, which is nice. But it's seasonal. So like literally they brewed their last batch, and they're going to replace it for the summer with the Sunnyside Session IPA, which is a very popular summertime brew from Great Lakes. So just kind of some interesting inside baseball that you learn when you listen to Between Two Fermenters, which is the official podcast of Great Lakes Brewery.
I thought for a moment I thought you just made that up, and then I was like, wow, that's actually real. That's great.
It's all real. No lies on this program here. And just to give you one more gift before I ask you about Bill 212. You ever heard of Bill 212?
It rings a bell, maybe. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to get you to tell us what that is, and then we're going to talk about exciting court stuff. I feel like I need to bring in Lauren Honickman for these legal briefs. But I do have in my freezer upstairs, Michael, a frozen lasagna from Palma Pasta.
Hey, fantastic.
Do you enjoy Italian food?
I do, yeah. Lasagna is great.
You're going to get a lasagna. It's delicious. We actually had it yesterday. Yes, we had it yesterday. We had a little party for my youngest who's turning 10, but we had a little party for her yesterday, and it was catered by Palma Pasta. Everybody can go to palmapasta.com, and Michael, you can let me know what you think of your lasagna.
I'm confident it'll be great. Is this leftovers from yesterday? It's fine if it is. Beggars can't be choosers, but...
You know what? That's not a bad idea because I have a couple of the veal parmesan. I still have some veal parmesan upstairs, and we could have leftovers while we talk about cycling and et cetera up here. But I want you to set the table. Like, I do talk about this quite a bit with Ed Keenan, who comes on every quarter. But can you remind the listenership, what the heck was Bill 212? Set the table for me, Michael.
Yeah, and if I'm glossing over things or going too fast or whatever, please feel free
slow
to
you down.
Stop me or interrogate me on this. But Bill 212 was legislation that the provincial government under Doug Ford introduced back in the fall of 2024, and ostensibly it was meant to basically proposed that cities that have put bike lanes in, that they would need to provide data to the province about how these bike lanes are being used to evaluate whether or not they should continue or not. And after sort of announcing the legislation this way, it very quickly pivoted to being like, no, Bill 212, we don't need the data. We've just decided we're going to remove the bike lanes on Bloor Young and University.
Right.
So that's about 19 kilometers. It's more or less the backbone of Toronto's cycling network. And just going to remove it immediately because bike lanes, in the Premier's words and the Minister's words, bike lanes cause traffic congestion. We need to put bike lanes on side streets, and we, gosh darn it, need to get Toronto moving.
Now I'm going to ask you some dumb questions because I'm a dumb guy. Okay, listeners know that. But how is bike lanes a provincial matter? Isn't that a municipal decision?
Yeah, technically it's municipal, but technically it's also provincial. Folks might remember, back in whatever it was, 2018, 2019, when the province decided, hey, Toronto, we're going to adjust all the number of wards and cut them in half. Cities basically only exist by virtue of the province. Cities in and of themselves don't have any constitutional status. So they've been delegated a whole bunch of responsibilities, including roads and bike lanes, but ultimately the province does still have control over it. So they kind of stepped in and said, hey, Toronto, we don't like these bike lanes. And, it's not hard to guess why. The 3 bike lanes in question are more or less the Premier's commute to work. I don't think that's a coincidence.
Wow. What are you suggesting here, Michael?
I'm saying there are other protected bike lanes in Toronto that aren't being subject to Bill 212, but funnily the bike lanes that are part of North Etobicoke to Queen's Park, those are the problem ones. I don't know if it's a coincidence, but it seems
that would be remarkably petty.
Very out of character, of course. Again, Cycle Toronto is nonpartisan, so I'm going to be very careful on how I frame some of this. But yeah, it's patently pretty ridiculous legislation. It's a gross overreach of local democracy, very much undermining multiple mayors, multiple city councillors. These bike lanes were originally approved under Mayor John Tory, and when Mark Grimes was the councillor here, we have a new mayor and you have a new city councillor as well, and they're very supportive of it. But these things happen through very long processes. The city isn't casual about where it puts bike lanes. I sometimes wish they were more casual, but they're not. And multiple times council voted on these lanes. Multiple councillors have been voted in favor of them, and they're here. And so this attempt to remove them out, we basically despite garnering a petition with over 30,000 signatures, despite 20,000 plus people writing into the legislature and saying we don't want this, including lots of organizations that normally aren't even involved in bike lanes. They were just upset about this overreach. They went ahead with it, and so we basically took them to court.
Okay, so there you go. Let's not bury this lead here. You I want to get the terminology right. You launched a charter challenge to Ontario's Bill 212.
That is correct. Yeah, that
And
is.
who's you exactly? Cycle Toronto. Anyone else involved?
So Cycle Toronto was the lead applicant, and then there were two individuals as well. Eva Ross-Sanger, who's a university student.
Well, I think it's the opposite. I think it's Eva Stanger-Ross.
Oh, Eva Stanger-Ross. I should know this. I've spoken to Eva so many times.
I'm here to Robert Lawson you on
Good
the fact
Lord.
checking here. Okay,
I'm
and
gonna
sorry,
make
the
sure
other name?
Eva, and then Narada Kiendo, who's a gig worker, food delivery courier.
Okay, so what is where are we at with this?
Yeah, so, and then we had lawyers as well from EcoJustice and from a firm, Pallier Rowland. And so we launched a legal challenge, and we'll get into the nuts of it a little bit later. But
Sure.
we basically argued that, I'll just sort of say it this way. We launched the legal challenge that basically argued that removing these bike lanes was actually a violation of Section 7 of the Charter. And because, we argued that this was arbitrary and that would put people's lives at risk. And so went to court over that. And, it might seem a little odd about how our bike lanes and how does that get into the Constitution or the Charter. But again, we can kind of talk a little bit about how this sort of applies to that as well. I don't want to get too ahead of myself.
Okay, because I do like the details. But
okay.
Yeah, don't hesitate to dive deep. If we lose the audience, I don't care because I'm interested.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, so basically within Section 7, we argued that because this legislation won't do what it claims to do, so that removing bike lanes will not solve traffic congestion. And we were able to show, not only with our experts, but through government documents that came out through this legal challenge that they were advised, both in terms of an internal cabinet briefing, in terms of consultants that they hired, that removing these bike lanes would not solve traffic congestion and conclusively would put people's lives at risk. And so basically what we were sort of arguing is look, there's not some kind of constitutional right to bike lanes, but that when governments make decisions, any level of government make decisions, they have to be based in some kind of reality. And if that decision is then going to put people's lives at risk, that's where Section 7 comes in. And in our case, a judge agreed with us back in July. So we were actually successful.
July 2025. Yep. Okay. So, and before we pick it up, so let me just review here. So, it also costs money to remove bike lanes.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So you'll pay money to remove bike lanes that will have little effect on vehicular traffic. It's not going to solve the traffic problem in this city, but it will make it more dangerous for cyclists.
Yeah, and the city actually estimated that the cost of removal would be in the neighborhood of $50 million. And of course, in the short term, it actually would definitely make traffic worse because you'd have these construction projects on Bloor-Young University blocking up the roads to try to remove the bike lanes.
Okay. And one other question I have regarding the Bloor bike lanes. It's not the entire...
It's the entire Bloor bike lanes.
Is that right?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
So it's not like you're west of Jane or something?
No, it's the entire stretch. All of Bloor, all
I almost need to process it because of where I live. I don't get as many. I don't have as much time spent on the Yonge and the university lines that are affected. Oh, I'm glad they're there, of course. But I actually do sincerely. You can follow me on Strava. Okay, I'm not making any of this up. I ride the Bloor bike lanes every single week, and I gotta say, I actually have a mom who lives on Aberfoyle. Okay,
sure.
And if I'm at, let's say I'm doing a gig at One Yorkville or something, and then I'm going to Aberfoyle, I gotta say that separated bike lane on Bloor Street is just amazing. I feel safe, I feel secure, it's slick. I see lots of people using it.
Yeah.
So that's amazing that they would rip. For some reason, I was thinking, maybe they're just going to rip it up. And then now that's still not cool because I love it west of Jane too. But I thought, okay, maybe they're going to rip it up west of Jane.
Yeah, certainly in the lead up to all of this, there was a lot of controversy, as I'm sure you know, about the Bloor West extension.
I heard they're suing Amber Morley over it.
They're suing Amber Morley and the city over this. Yeah, so
I
think that's due to be heard later this year as well, which is completely, again, ridiculous. I think the councillor is, pretty generous about it. I think she'll say a lot, that's their right. But, again, just a pretty ridiculous waste of money, but whatever, we're taking the
I can
province
text.
forward.
This is a friend of Toronto Mike. This is an FOTM, Amber Morley. I'll text her now and get the real talk on that one.
Oh, sure. Yeah. It'd be good. So, no, poor counselor, but yeah. So, I mean, very controversial. And I think, that was something else that I think people found surprising as well, that, this wasn't just focused on that, controversial stretch of Bloor that had, a lot of very well connected local businesses to the Premier's office. They were able to move this forward. It was actually all of Bloor Street, all of Yonge Street, all of University Avenue.
That's incredible. Okay, and one more thing before we find out where we're at exactly with with this suit and everything, because you mentioned something went down in the summer, but then I guess the province filed an appeal.
They appealed, yeah.
And you've made your appearance in court.
We did, yeah.
Appeal.
Yeah, so we had the appeal hearing was back at the end of January, and so we're now in waiting mode again. Very likely be another couple months until we get a decision.
Okay, so we'll see if that appeal was successful. I'm personally hoping it's not successful.
Yeah,
no shocker there.
I'm leaning that way too. Yeah.
Jeez, but when the premier of this province talks about, we don't want bike lanes on major arteries, they should be on side streets. Okay, I live in this neighborhood and I bike like crazy and my kids bike, and there is no such alternative for Bloor, for example.
No. And that was part of the evidence that we put in. We actually tried our best case to be if Bloor didn't exist, how would we map an east-west corridor from Etobicoke to downtown? And as you know, you can't do it without making the route almost 50% longer and then having some pretty wacky elevation changes, especially as you're going in and out of the valley.
Well, because before the bike lane, I personally would just ride on Bloor, but I don't actually like my 10-year-old daughter riding on Bloor if there's no bike lane in this West End. I was so glad to see it here. I mean, it was a deal changer for how I bike with my kids from High Park to Royal York.
Oh, goodness, it would be, yeah.
Deal changer. But if people aren't familiar with the West End, and I don't mean to be West End centric, but I sort of talk about what I know and touch and feel every day. But you have, it's a terrible street to cycle, but you have to the south of Bloor, you have a street called Queensway.
And very south of Bloor.
Yeah, at 5K, 5K, I think. And north of Bloor, eventually, I guess there's Dundas, which is one of the scariest, I don't know if you can put a bike lane. And then you get to Eglinton, and Eglinton's great, but that's really north of Bloor. Yeah. So there is nothing even remotely close that is a east-west option if you're trying to bike from the West End to downtown, for example.
No, and you kind of said it too. Sometimes people will say oh, well, you have the waterfront trail. Why do you need Bloor Street? And again, it's sort of
That's
thinking
10K, I think.
Yeah, and so it's sort of thinking about it a little bit differently. When you're on your bike, some people will bike further, and I'm sure you're pretty used to doing 10, 12, 20K rides. But for most people, when they're using a bike for their daily activities, it's 5, 6K is kind of the sweet spot. Yeah. And if you're getting further than that, it's you know what? Maybe the bike isn't the best tool. Maybe you should be taking transit, or maybe that's a trip you should be driving instead. And so if you build out cycling infrastructure that's so spread out like that, you're basically telling people actually you can't bike. Biking isn't a good choice unless you're already really bought in and sold and already a self-described avid cyclist.
And I'm totally glad you brought that up, because I am well aware the typical commuting cyclist who's trying to commute this city isn't putting in the 30 to 40K that I choose to do. I do it for sport.
Sure, yep,
sometimes I have a destination, but today I didn't have a destination. Oh, I had a 2K destination and I stretched it to 40K. Okay, that's where we're at, Michael. But when you get how much notice do you get that the court's going to make its decision regarding this appeal?
Oh, almost none at all. We'll just get it pretty quick. So again, it could be soon, could be long. It's a pretty detailed charter argument now. When the appeal happened, they can't basically argue, they can't retry it. Basically what the province has to argue is that the judge made an error in judgment in his decision. So basically have to sort of try to reshow these are the errors that, Justice Shabas made in his ruling. And so, because I would sort of argue that this appeal really isn't about bike lanes anymore. It really is about how Section 7 does or doesn't apply to when governments make legislation. And so I think the appeals court is going to treat this very seriously, knowing that there's potential, ramifications for how, this legislation applies or not. But, out of the gates, there was kind of concerns from, some folks that like, oh, this is just going to open the floodgates to like every legislation that the government passes around traffic or road safety is going to now be subject to charter challenges. But, I'll sort of say after this, the province also told municipalities, hey, you can't have speed cameras anymore. That was something that also they could only do because of the province. And there haven't been any legal challenges around that. So again, this is a very narrow argument that we're making around these 3 specific bike lanes and the reasons the province gave for wanting to remove them.
And I know that you mentioned this earlier, but you were able to confirm that there were these internal documents that the government had. And the internal documents had their own experts saying basically like, oh, FYI, removing these bike lanes won't actually reduce congestion in downtown Toronto, which is supposedly the goal here. So how do you get access to those? Was that like because they had to disclose it? Like how did you get the
it was through they had to disclose it, yeah.
So I'm going to say, I know you're one, spoke in the wheel. See what I'm doing there?
That's good.
Thank you. I'm going to say thank you. Like I'm thoroughly impressed that you've got this far, and I'm holding out hope that the appeal, which that appeal was going to be a slam dunk, they were going to appeal it. I guess that's sort of par for the course. But I'm holding out that it fails the appeal. So I got to say thank you. Like you're doing important work here.
Oh, thanks.
That makes like a difference in my family. For my 10-year-old who got a new bike for her 10th birthday and she's so excited, like it makes a big difference how we get from A to B.
Yeah, no, it's thanks for saying so. It is very nice to be waking up every day and, be doing a job that you passionately believe in and, within a very narrow sense of the world, helping feel like you're making things better. And, as you kind of hit it on this too, like even if, you're someone who's, not going to be riding a bike and not going to be relying on it for your daily transportation, like, every car that you see stuck in traffic around you, you should be wanting everyone else to have the option to choose to drive.
Right.
Not every trip is bikeable. Not every person's going to choose to ride a bike, but the, more we can make it safer and convenient for more people, the better it is for everybody. And better it is for helping address traffic congestion.
Okay, one less car on the road. And I know TTC is an option, but, cycling isn't, I think if you can, not everybody can. You have a broken femur.
Yeah, can't right now. Yeah.
Yeah. And there are people who can't do it, and I'm sensitive to that. But if you can, man, it's good for the environment. It's good for your mental health. It's good for your physical health. It's good for gridlock. It just makes sense.
Yeah,
it's good for your wallet.
Yeah, and again, even if you're not someone yourself who is choosing to bike, like the better it is for more people to bike, the better it is for you if you have no other options but to drive.
Right. So, okay, so this is obviously the most exciting thing going on, and I feel like when this appeal fails and we're cracking open the Great Lakes beer, this is a movie waiting. I feel like this is a film. You see films like this where, you fight. It's like they say you can't fight City Hall, and you're like, watch me. Like there's a movie here to be made.
I would watch that movie. So they've got an audience of at least 1, now 2.
Clearly. I'd watch that too. I'd watch that movie.
So, Hollywood, get going on this. Yeah. And the good thing is they could shoot it in Toronto and they wouldn't have to pretend Toronto was another city for a change. So it'd be Toronto as Toronto.
No, I love it. It's like Scott Pilgrim versus the world.
Oh,
it's like we're unashamedly good. Toronto here.
There you go.
I feel like lately, I do feel like the movement has been for Toronto to play Toronto. Like it was like, I think we're of an age where we're used to like Short Circuit 2 or something. Like that's clearly Toronto, but they're going to pretend it's, I don't know, Chicago or New York or something. But I feel like it's become okay now for Toronto to play Toronto.
Yeah, Scott Pilgrim was definitely one. I remember Take This Waltz as well, the Sarah Polley film, very Toronto. But it's funny, we had the War on Cars podcaster folks in the city a couple weeks ago, New York-based podcast, really great episode. They're New Yorkers, and they were saying like just how familiar Toronto looked to them because of the number of TV and movies they'd seen where Toronto was playing New York. Yeah.
That's funny. So what's next, other than this obvious big exciting thing that's happening, and we await word that the courts made their decision on this appeal by the province and that you're successful in your, what do we call this, the Bill 212 charter rights. What is this? The terminology. I got to call Lauren Honickman and figure out how to say it.
You're doing good.
Yeah, okay. I took a few notes here. I didn't want to sound too stupid. Okay, I'm trying to change my image here. But what else is on the radar? Like, what else has Cycle Toronto got brewing?
Well, I mean, even longer term, in terms of the province, generally we don't get too involved in provincial matters. In this case, the premier kind of forced our hands. But after passing Bill 212, they decided that wasn't enough. And so when they introduced Bill 60 back in this fall, so fall 2025, which ostensibly was a lot of, frankly, in my opinion, pretty terrible housing pieces, would have made it a lot easier for landlords to evict tenants and make housing more insecure. But within that, they also buried in more bike lane things. So now under Bill 60, municipalities like Toronto can't install bike lanes if they wouldn't remove car lanes. So that in of itself is also a pretty big handicap for cities now. And that stands regardless what happens with our legal challenge. So our legal challenge has nothing to do with Bill 60 or how new bike lanes are being built.
This is all 212.
Just protecting the existing bike lanes that are here. Yeah. So that's something in the medium longer term we're going to spend more time and energy on as well. And then also doing, what Cycle Toronto normally does is, just ensuring the city keeps expanding forward with its existing bike network. Like, this organization was founded back in 2008, like I said, out of frustration that the city had a bike plan. It had been approved in 2001. At the time, Olivia Chow was like the councillor champion of it. It was back Mel Lastman days. The city had just been amalgamated, and they'd put together this bike plan that was meant to try to grapple with a amalgamated citywide cycling network. And so this was like, hey, not just the old city of Toronto, how do we deal with, all the boroughs and create a cycling network around that? And so, a couple of years later, David Miller's elected mayor. And, despite a lot of really good talk, things have been kind of progressing very slowly. And so a fellow named David Meslin basically just went to the US, did some auditing of like other cycling advocacy orgs, and sort of came up with this model of like, hey, if we have a grassroots cycling org, that's how you make progress in other cities. And so Cycle Toronto comes out of frustration of the city not moving forward, having a really good bike plan and not moving forward with it. And a lot of what we do now is similar thing. The city passes rolling 3-year bike plans. They're often pretty good or pretty ambitious. And then, we're just there to help hold them accountable to doing that. And, they almost always fall short of the number of kilometers they're supposed to do. But just making sure that keeps happening. So,
okay. So Bill 212 and Bill 60 notwithstanding, okay, if we put those aside for now, how is the city doing in terms of cycling infrastructure?
Fine. Better than it has been historically. Like, I think one of the things that's really easy to take for granted is just how much better cycling is in the city post-pandemic. Toronto, like a lot of cities during the pandemic lockdowns, really accelerated a lot of cycling infrastructure. And, after, Cycle Toronto had campaigns about a lot of projects that were kind of in limbo for a while, and it seemed like bam, overnight, they were all kind of done. So, certainly within the old city of Toronto downtown, we have a decent grid of bike lanes that have started extending into Scarborough and Etobicoke and North York, much better than it was. Current progress has been a little bit slowed because of provincial things. And I think overall, we're also just seeing that bikes are becoming increasingly polarized. There's a lot of a kind of bad faith culture war out there that I think the premier is really leaning into. And we're kind of seeing it in, municipal politics as well, that bikes are becoming kind of a bad word right now and kind of an easy scapegoat to, rage bait folks.
Okay, well, you've opened the floodgates here, Michael. I was wondering when we'd segue over to this. And I know you said something about Cycle Toronto is bipartisan.
Nonpartisan.
Right. Okay. I got, it's one of those. Yeah. What was the Three Amigos where the guy said, yeah, I'm infamous. Like, what does that mean? It's like really famous. Anyways, shout out to Three Amigos. But okay. By the way, Three Amigos is a movie I absolutely loved when I saw it in the theater when it was brand new. And then when I had my firstborn, who's now 24, I was excited to watch it with him. And I was completely underwhelmed. And I wonder why I ever liked it in the first place. Like, it did not hold up to me as I matured.
What did he think though?
What did James think? I should call him up now and ask him. I was hanging with him yesterday, but I was like, oh, I loved this movie, and it doesn't look very funny or very good.
That's I hate when that happens. Revisiting a loved classic and it doesn't live up to it.
Do you have a movie you loved as a child that did not hold up, or maybe all of them?
I mean, held up really well. I can't watch E.T. without crying. Like I just burst into tears. It's way too intense. I love that film when I was a kid, and still it just hits me way too hard.
I probably told this story. Maybe I should save it for my one-man show at the Alma Combo on May 21st. Did you know I'm doing a one man, but I do have a keyboard prodigy named Rob Bruce on stage with me at the Elmo. But tickets are now available, and the listenership should go to torontomike.com and click the link at the top that says Elmo Gig and buy a couple of tickets. This is happening on it's happening on May 21st, but I'll tell you very quickly that I saw E.T. at a drive-in theater.
Oh, nice.
Because we're old enough to remember that on off the 400. And I gotta say, like, I didn't understand, like, when I'm watching the movie, spoiler alert, everybody, if you haven't seen E2, but E.T. is flatlining, okay? He is dead.
Yep.
I'm kind of mad because, I just applied human rules to this alien, which in hindsight was naive of me, okay? But I was pretty young, pretty damn young. I don't know, 6 or 7 or something. I don't know. And I was bawling. Like, I was traumatized. E.T. was dead, and I just couldn't. I was really having a tough time in that car, weeping openly that E.T. was dead. And I'm still kind of mad at the fact that Spielberg fucked with me like that, because he could make up the rules for E.T. because he's not human.
Yeah, no, Spielberg's incredible though. Like he's playing this all like a violin. It's great. And again, just as a good example too, we're sort of talking about bikes and cars. Drive-ins, really great use of cars. Like approved. Like that's a good use of cars. Drive-ins. Yeah.
And E.T., great use of bikes.
Yeah, great use. Oh my God. Yeah, great use of bikes. Yeah.
Think about that, since you remember the 80s and I remember you remember the 80s, right? Although you look young, because you were dropping like references to your age earlier, and I was like, oh, he's older than I thought he was.
It's all the biking that's keeping me young looking.
That femur break worked for you. But I did not, no helmet touched my head until 2012.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
I know. And there, I should point out, there's like a 15-year break when I'm not biking a lot. So I bike like crazy until I'm in my early 20s. And then for 15 years, I'm not sure why I didn't bike. I worked far away and I drove to work. It was out of my lifestyle. We can get into why, whatever. And then I start biking again in 2012, and I buy a helmet because it makes sense to wear a helmet in 2012. But that was the first time a helmet touched my head. In the 80s, bike and 90s, biking like crazy, it didn't even occur to me to put a helmet on my head.
Yeah, I'm trying to think now too. I don't know if I wore a helmet either in my teens and 20s.
Like early 90s, when I'm clocking major clicks, biking downtown like crazy with my bud Ed, my bud Chris, my bud Andre, none of us wore a helmet.
I mean, at the end of the day, like, sure, I recommend people wear a helmet. I've had a couple concussions. I don't want to have another. Recommend a helmet with something called like a slip liner or MIPS to prevent or reduce the chance of a concussion. But, at the end of the day, if you're going to be hit by a car traveling 60, 70 kilometers per hour, helmet's not going to do very much. You're going to probably end up
fine, but you broke, you talked about your leg broke because you hit the concrete.
A helmet wouldn't have fixed my I was wearing a helmet. It didn't help my knee. So I need a refund on that helmet.
If the angles are changed. I can tell you I had a bike crash in 2020 and my helmet split into two, and I got a CAT scan and they said it was fine. I won't tell you what happened a couple years later with my brain. That's listeners know. But I swear, I feel like that saved my life. Like, if it split my helmet, what would have happened if I wasn't wearing a helmet?
I strongly recommend people wear helmets and also understand why helmet laws aren't mandatory. I
get why. I'm not even advocating for helmet laws to be mandatory. I know that for kids it's mandatory, and I guess it's like 16 plus. It's up to you or something like that.
And e-bikes and.
But your raccoons are wearing helmets on your t-shirt.
Yeah, helmets are great and cool. Like I love my helmets. They're like great accessories.
I think it's just like an interesting mindset. And I know in ET they're not wearing helmets either, right? But like it's just an interesting mindset. How I can't imagine going for even a 5K ride right now without wearing the helmet. Like, I just wouldn't do it. It's like wearing a seatbelt.
Yeah, I wouldn't chance it either.
But we didn't think in the 90s when we're flying around in downtown with no bike lanes, I'm going everywhere downtown with the cars and whatever. It didn't even cross my mind, I should put something to protect my brain.
I think we had just overall different sense of values around bodily safety in the 60s, 70s.
We just didn't give a
80s.
rat's ass back then. Okay, so I was going somewhere with we got on a ET tangent.
Great
there.
tangent.
Oh, right. I was thinking, funny how we got there. But I'm personally, I don't think I'm alone, but I'm personally frustrated at this politicization of cycling.
Yes, you should be.
And I'm no idiot. Like when Doug Ford goes off on bike lanes and there's Bill 212 and there's Bill 60, and I know this is red meat for his base, who also seem to hate cyclists and cycling infrastructure. How did cycling get so politicized?
That's a great question. I've spent a lot of time thinking about that. The one thing that I take a little solace on is that this isn't just a Toronto thing. I think it's something that we're seeing, around cities around the world. Even, goodness, I mean, it hasn't gone as far as Toronto, but even in the case of Montreal, like recently elected a new mayor who promised to audit all the existing bike lanes. So, Montreal's obviously moved way further ahead of Toronto in terms of cycling, arguably the best city in North America for cycling. But yeah, now they have a mayor who's going to be like, maybe we need to pause, maybe we need to look at this. So this is something that's happening in cities worldwide. It just has its own unique Toronto pizzazz and flavor to it right now, in part because of the legacy of the Ford brothers. So,
but when I think of cycling, right, like I'll think of like European cities, like Amsterdam, for example, or I was been to, even Berlin or Copenhagen, a lot of these cities. So is it that what is it, Don Cherry? You quoted the Don Cherry, or maybe I quoted it, but you brought up the Don Cherry when I don't know, is it inauguration? What happens when a new mayor comes in? Is that an inauguration?
I don't know if it is, but I think we all call it an inauguration.
I'm going to call it the Rob Ford inauguration. Yeah. I had a t-shirt and I can't remember who made it, but it was a left-wing Pinko's Bike TO.
When Bike TO was a thing back in the day,
Okay, I had a couple of Bike TO t-shirts, but I definitely had the left-wing Pinko, and I remember that line, stick that in your pipe and smoke it or whatever. Like, let's lean in here. But cycling has definitely been politicized, and here we are in 2026. And it's like, even though Olivia Chow has not officially announced she's running to be reelected for mayor, so she hasn't officially said she's doing so, but it looks like it might be an Olivia Chow versus Brad Bradford showdown to be mayor in this coming election 2026. Brad Bradford, also an FOTM, and also a cyclist like us.
Yeah, rides a bike a lot. Yeah,
I follow him on Strava. He loves to bike, but he what's the term? He supported Bill 212 in removing these bike lanes, right?
Well, I mean, municipal officials couldn't support or not Bill 212, but yeah, I think he has a vote against the Bloor West piece when there were some councillors who were trying to open it back up while Bill 212 was kind of being discussed. And so City Hall voted again, like, hey, are we going to remove the Bloor West extension? Yeah.
Now, again, you'll have to do some speculation and guesswork here because we can't read these minds. But is it simply we learn about wedge issues when it comes to elections, and that Brad needs to be the anti-Chow vote? Like, Brad Bradford, to win this election, needs all the people who are against Olivia Chow to vote for him. This is the path to victory. And Olivia Chow is a bike lane friendly person. I recently met her at Christie Pitts, and she had her beautiful bike with her, and she had bike there, and she also kayaks, by the way. Do you know that?
I did. Okay. Yeah.
Is there a Kayak Toronto group that I should know about?
Kayak TO, yeah.
We got to get on that. Okay. But is it simply Brad needs to be anti-bike lane in order for that same red meat, the same crowd that loves Doug Ford taking away bike lanes to get that vote? Like, simply politically has to be anti-bike lane?
Oh, goodness. I wouldn't even pretend to guess. I think one of the things I'll just sort of let you know is I am very happy I am not a politician. I am the son of a politician. My mom was a member of city council in Whitby and a former member of parliament. And so I grew up around politics my entire life. And I am very happy with the career choice I have made right now and that I am not an elected official. I think something that we sort of see that, this is maybe adjacent to kind of what you're talking about is like cycling and cyclists, it's not a monoculture. Folks who ride bikes don't necessarily all have all the same, values, political pieces too. And people ride bikes for different reasons. And I think something that we saw a lot in Etobicoke around the debate around the Bloor West piece is a lot of folks who, self-described as avid cyclists, were maybe riding a lot recreationally. I hate using the word mammal, for a middle-aged man in Lycra, even though I am sometimes one. But, we're riding their road bikes for sport and, didn't like this infrastructure because it wasn't conducive to riding at speed on a road bike. And it's like, well, of course not. This is not meant for you to be able to go out on your, specialized S-Works and, at 40K an hour. This is meant for people of all ages and abilities to be able to get from point A to point B. And so there is some of that piece too, that a lot of the people that are like most opposed to cycling infrastructure are self-described avid cyclists, or will then default to I'm not opposed to bike lanes, but just where they make sense. And, I think for a lot of folks that was Bloor West that became a bit of a flashpoint, but
although they can never tell you, I was at a Taste of the Kingsway event, and somebody with a camera, I don't know who they were representing, but they had questions for me on camera, and they were clearly baiting me into being against the bike lane. It was like the leading questions. And I actually, and I don't know where this footage ever went. They probably deleted it because it didn't fit their narrative. But I said, look, do you know this area? And they go, yeah. I said, okay, when you get west of Jane, tell me the street. Like, what is this magical street west of Jane that'll actually get you to Etobicoke? And there isn't one, of course, right? There isn't one. We had this conversation. We won't repeat ourselves. So where it makes sense, there is no other option. And I know we're repeating ourselves now, but I'll tell you, I don't own any Lycra.
I do. Yeah, it's great. It's great stuff.
So am I missing out?
Yeah, it's good stuff. Yeah.
I did. So this is a memory I have. 2013, I did the Ride to Conquer Cancer for my buddy Mike Kick. We lost Kick too young to cancer, but I did the Ride to Conquer Cancer. And I did note as I was riding this, there's a long route, but you end up at Mohawk College in Hamilton. Everybody had like the padded shorts and the clipless pedals. And I had neither. I was just I had neither. Yeah. And everybody had it. And I'm like, it's almost felt like they're kind of cheating.
Well, it is in a certain way, when the faster you ride, the more aerodynamics becomes a factor. So if you're wearing, Lycra spandex, it really does help. And again, it shouldn't be it shouldn't be necessary for every ride. It's, a bike is a tool and you pick the right tool for the job. And if you're out riding on the weekend for 5, 6, 7 hours plus, clipless pedals and Lycra works out pretty well.
And those are long rides, but I'm not those kind of guys. I know those guys. They got the $10,000 bike and they go out for the long ride on the weekend. Too time consuming here. Okay, so give me a little. You mentioned your mom was an MP in Whitby. That's pretty rad, actually. But when you became executive director of Cycle Toronto, who were you? Just give us a taste of who was Michael Longfield when he joins, when he becomes a executive director of Cycle Toronto.
Goodness, who was I?
Who the hell are you?
Who am I now? Jeez Louise. I sort of, have had a pretty eclectic, career path. It's kind of a neat thing having, staff working for me who are much younger, who sometimes are questioning, oh goodness, what am I doing with my life? And I'm like, man, you are so much further ahead than I was when I was your age. Right. But I spent time, I actually went to film school. I thought that's what I was going to do. Yeah. Went to U of T, studied film history, went to Vancouver, did some film production out there, came back, worked on film sets, worked at a movie theater, worked for TIFF, worked at the Pan Am Games, and Aga Khan Museum. So kind of a little bit all over the place. All the while, though, I was doing a lot of volunteer work in the sport cycling side of things. So I'm a very mediocre bike racer. I love it. I'm not very good at it, but I really enjoy the feeling of going fast and really kind of pushing myself. And so I was involved in a lot of that space. And one of the things that I've really noticed within the cycling communities post-pandemic, or even in the lead up, or even those first months of the pandemic, is just how much younger and more diverse and frankly more female the sport side is now. And a lot of those people that are riding bikes, on the weekend or riding for recreation and sport. They're also using their bikes for transportation as well. So there's less of this mammal versus advocate divide that there maybe was 10 years ago. And more people are just realizing, right, like bike's a tool and you pick the right tool for the job.
Did you ever make a film?
I made one in film school. Yeah. A documentary about the Vancouver Zoo.
Okay. You could combine these
you can find
passions. I'm looking for that. I'm checking that out in the torrents. Where the hell is it? But you could combine these passions. Like you could make little, Toronto cycling films. I don't know. There's got to be a way to cross over these passions.
Well, I mean, the thing that's nice about it now is, bikes take up so much of my, life. It's my job.
Sure.
I still, ride a bike generally for transportation. I'm still, riding on, normally I'd be riding and training and racing as well. So I actually kind of like that movies are this non-bike thing right now. It really is my getaway from kind of everything two wheels related.
Absolutely. Here.
Except, if you're watching E.T. or good knows what, and like, oh, there's another bicycle. Like
a lot of cycling. My wife is watching a series and I've caught, she'll watch it in two ways. Like, she'll literally have it on her phone and with headphones on, and she'll go about doing stuff in the weekend. And then I'm not watching,
yep.
But then once in a while, she throws it on the actual living room screen, the TV in the living room. And if I'm there doing something, it's now on in the room, and I'll catch parts of it. So I have seen a good chunk of this. It's called Love Story, and it's the story of JFK Jr. and Carolyn Bessette.
Oh yeah.
Okay. And I saw a scene where a JFK Jr. in New York City, he bikes everywhere, and he's cycling the city, and I thought that was pretty rad that his transportation of choice in the city of New York was to bike.
That's a very rational choice in a city like New York. Yeah.
So yeah, although it's kind of ridiculous, and I guess I don't know if if these biopic things, half of it's real, half of it's made up or whatever. That's just the way it is. So I don't know if this is real or not, but he would have a nice bike and he would leave it in New York. He wouldn't lock it, and then he'd go have dinner or whatever, and he'd come back and he'd be like, oh, my bike was stolen, and then he'd go buy a new bike. Like, he just, you know what I mean? Like, so
he's still living this other kind of life. Yeah. Yeah.
So he bikes everywhere,
disposable
but
bikes.
He's
when
like,
you so many.
They're which is kind of nice when you think about it. Maybe somebody who needs it more is getting that bike now, and he can just replenish his supply because he's JFK Jr.
It's like the forefather of bike share, really. Right. He's like, here we go. I will
he's
personally
giving back.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of beautiful as I think about it in that context. If I were a multimillionaire, I may also do that as well. Just buy a new Fuji feather or whatever when I need it. Is it the perception I had as a guy who's been going hard at the cycling since 2012 and this rebirth of mine? It seemed like we got major awesome infrastructure thanks to the Pan Am Games. You mentioned the Pan Am Games in 2015.
So especially where you are, the Lakeshore Waterfront Trail really got a nice reno because of the Pan Am Games, and that's a big legacy of that project for sure. And then the other big one was the pandemic. Like people just started. Cities across the world, people just started riding bikes. They realized, like, holy crap, this is a really good way to get around and get outside, and physical, mental health, and the number of people we would see outside. Gosh, do you remember like those active TO weekends when Lakeshore West would be closed to cars and you get 20,000-30,000 people on the weekend? Yeah, that was a freaking dream.
Loved it very much. I still remember the when Tory was mayor, of course, the Rogers request to maybe we don't do this on game day.
Oh, the Blue Jays, yeah. And technically, active TO is still on the books. So when they had the last vote on it, it was supposed to be like, transportation staff will recommend when to do it again, and just it's never come up since then.
It was fun though.
It was great. It wanted to just kind of go back to something you were kind of hinting, with Councillor Bradford and Mayor Chow and Brad. Coming up with the election as well. I think something like I kind of keep reminding myself is like, despite the fact that we're, again, biking kind of in this culture war thing, cycling itself isn't really a left-right issue. Like, I think a lot about what happened in London under Boris Johnson, who was like a conservative, politician, and, London's network of bike lanes really explodes under Boris Johnson. And, in the case of Toronto, I don't think, Tory would like to sort of see this as one of his legacies, but, Toronto has its biggest expansion of bike lanes under a, centrist, right of center mayor under John Tory. And I think more or less what you can say with under Olivia Chow is there's been more or less a continuation of the Tory level of infrastructure. We haven't had more new bike lanes. Under Tory, by the end of his terms, Toronto was building, a decent amount of bike lanes. And I think what we've seen under Mayor Chow is sort of a continuation of that Tory era plan.
That's interesting. That's actually an interesting point. And then I often wonder, and this will tie. Yeah, I'm going to put a pin in this because it's going to tie into something I want to ask you about this past winter we had.
Oh boy.
And I am going to give a little love to recyclemyelectronics.ca because, Michael, if you have an old drawer, and there's a drawer at home, maybe two, or a closet.
Many more.
You've got old cables, old electronics, old devices. Don't throw that in the garbage.
Nope.
Because those chemicals end up in our landfill. Go to recyclemyelectronics.ca, put in your postal code, and you can find out where you can drop it off to be properly recycled.
That's good.
It's interesting we're talking about, Brad Bradford and Olivia Chow, because Nick Iones has a podcast. He's got a couple that I help him produce, and Nick Iones is actually hosting a fundraiser for Brad Bradford. And Nick, as a sponsor of this program, he can direct the messaging as he desires. So I find it interesting that I'm going to tell everybody, and I don't have the details, but in a future Toronto Mike, I'll have the specifics. But I can tell everybody on April 2nd, there will be an event with Nick Iones chatting up Brad Bradford. It is a fundraising event for Brad Bradford. So Nick Iones would like me to pass that on to you. What a world we live in, Michael. I think it's a fascinating world. And I'm going to give my last bit of love to Ridley Funeral Home. They're hyper local. They're at 14th and Lakeshore. And Brad Jones there has a podcast called Life's Undertaking. And he sent over a measuring tape for you, Michael.
I'm allowed to use this on non-cadaver purposes, I assume, right?
Use as you desire.
Or this isn't sort of saying, you've been hit by a car a couple times, Michael, just keep us in mind. Oh, my wife's going to hate that I was making that joke.
Well, is your wife going to hear this episode?
I'll make her. So yes, out of love.
Give me the review. When you review the lasagna, make sure you let me know what she thought of this episode here. Okay. Marcusor, by the way, who made this episode happen, I'm just going to, he made a point here. I think it was, I want to get the person right. It looks like it was deleted, or actually like a reply was deleted. But I read moments ago here that maybe it was Leslie, but somebody noticed, to your point, that more women seem to be cycling. And I noticed with my wife, she is cycling. And the reason she started cycling to work when the weather is, she likes her temps over 20.
Yeah.
Okay, to each their own. She bought an e-bike.
That's my wife too. Yeah.
And that's I love the fact that e-bikes are getting people on the bike trails on bikes who would not typically bike. What are your thoughts on the resurgence of the e-surgence of e-bikes?
A plus. E-bikes are freaking phenomenal. E-bikes asterisk, let's say. We can talk about that a little bit later. But no, e-bikes are great. They're real game changers. My wife's the same. We had a subscription with a company called Zig for an e-bike for a while and loved it so much we ended up buying the bike, and it's been a real game changer for her. Her brother and our niece live 3 kilometers away, and that's a great distance to be able to go and bike with. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
e-cargo bikes, phenomenal. Again, can just real game changer for shopping and a whole bunch of other things for a lot of families. Can replace a car if you're a 2 car household. I think there's a lot of challenges right now with lots of things that are unregulated, things that are more mopeds or motorcycles that are being sold or marketed as bicycles.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Especially there are food delivery people who go by me on the bluer bike lane, usually because that's where I'd be downtown or whatever in the bluer bike lane. And I guess they're e-bikes. I always wonder sometimes. Some of these e-bikes look more like little motorcycles or something. But
they might still be legal e-bikes. The provincial definition for an e-bike is like really amorphous. It can include vehicles up to, goodness, I think 120 kilograms can still be considered e-bikes, and even if they have those little vestigial pedals, they can still kind of move. It could still technically be.
But I will say this: those pedals never move.
No.
I watched these guys go by me, and then when e-bikes first arrived, a woman passed me going up the hill. Where's that hill where you have the on the waterfront trail where you have the Legion, where that 5-year-old sadly was killed, Xavier Morgan. Yeah, but I saw a woman. I was biking my ass off, and a woman passed me. And this was like years ago when e-bikes first started to show up on the trails. And I had that moment of like, God, she just passed me like I was standing still, and I'm like, she's not even pedaling. Like it was quite a moment where you realize, oh, she's motorized.
Yeah, it's again you see a lot, like you said, see a lot of gig workers using these things, and on some level, like it's way better than another car on the road.
As long as they don't run me over.
And I think a lot of these things are actually being bought, in good faith. Like you can walk into Future Shop, not to diss anyone, but you can walk in there and buy like a Segway scooter, which is legal to buy.
Wait till I tell you Future Shop's long gone, brother. You mean Best Buy.
Best Buy. Jeez Louise, that's aging me right now. You can delete that part.
Much love to Future Shop.
This isn't live, is it?
No, we love Future Shop. We miss
Best Buy.
Future Shop.
But yeah, you can grab one of those. It's legal to buy. It's legal to use, but not on public roads in the city of Toronto or not on bike lanes. And there's just a lot of confusion out there. 3 levels of government can't get their acts together on this, and it's just creating. I think it's contributing to this kind of culture warness thing, and it's very easy to blame racialized people as part of this as well that are sort of relying on these devices.
That's an interesting point I didn't consider. I just so you don't run me over. I'm happy to share the lane with you. Okay, I know how I want to close here. So
yep,
it's kind of related to Olivia Chow, but it is my observation that we just had a very tough winter, I'd say. But this is Toronto. Like, it's not a shockingly tough winter, but we had this double hit that because I tried to bike through it every day. And it was tough because we did have the one day with a crazy amount of snow. It might have been a record, I think. But we had a lot of snow one day. But we also, surrounding that major snowstorm, was like deep freezes.
Yep.
Like, I found it tough for the cycling. Brad Bradford went on social media and suggested that the city was prioritizing snow removal in the bike lane versus the streets and the sidewalk. Did you see this social media post?
I saw it. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So, you should have seen the mountain that you mentioned that the Pan Am Games gave us that nice new infrastructure here. It was a game changer too for my kids, which is that First Street to Norris Crescent. We used to have to ride on Lakeshore. Right. And then with the Pan Am Games in 2015, there was a separated bike lane between First Street and Norris Crescent. Huge deal to like a missing link was clean. It was perfect. But there was a giant mountain of snow in that bike lane for a very, very, very long time. And I can tell you, as a guy who was trying to go to the bike to the junction to see my son, that the streets were far better to ride than the bike lanes. Part of that bluer bike lane were filled with snow, unbikeable.
Yeah, it seemed like what happened, and so that. Again, not to nerd out, but I will nerd out. The city does have a
place to do it.
I know the city does has service standards for how they're meant to treat sidewalks, bike lanes, roads, and then roads based on type of categorization. Is it an arterial? Is it a side street? And bike lanes too within that. And certainly early on, folks might have seen in the first couple of days or the first couple of hours of this, there was maybe a plow clearing a bike lane before the road or the sidewalk was done. And it's also different equipment they used to clear a bike lane.
So they can concurrently happen. It's not like they said, clear that bike lane before you get Lakeshore.
Yeah, and there are fewer kilometers of bike lanes, so in some ways it can be easier to start doing it. But certainly what we saw happen was after the first maybe pass or two that happened with a lot of these vehicles, they stopped clearing bike lanes, and a lot of the bike lanes seem like they became either intentionally or not, basically storage dumping grounds for sidewalks and roads. And through this process of freezing, they basically became unusable and they couldn't be plowed anymore. And you then needed to go into this massive snow removal process that took many, many weeks. And I think left a lot of people feeling really frustrated that, we've had 2 years in a row where our infrastructure hasn't been maintained or prioritized with no clear communication plan. I think that's the other thing that a lot of folks found really frustrating is like, what's the plan? When is this going to get done? When will I know it's going to be safe or not? And that wasn't communicated at all.
Now, I'm a reasonable man, Michael. Like, I don't have some kind of expectation where we'll get the biggest snowfall in recorded history, and I expect 48
overnight.
Hours later. Yeah.
Next moment.
I don't expect the next day or 2 days later for all my bike lanes to be clear so I can get my ass to the junction or whatever. I don't have that. I actually I will give it a week. I'll give it a week, which I think is fair. I'm not unreasonable.
I think that's what you saw with, it's as if I don't know. Cycle Toronto was pretty much the same. Like for the first week, we were pretty quiet about it. And then as it was a week, we started talking more about it. Like, hey, what's the plan here? When is this getting done? And started encouraging people to, send in 311 requests. Right. That still is the best way to get kind of almost anything done in this city. Yeah, I frankly, I don't think the city did a great job of it.
I don't think they did a great job either.
No. Partly, again, it's talked a lot about these contracts that, the mayor has inherited. And, one of the things in the winter maintenance contracts that we have is we haven't really prioritized snow removal. There's lots of snow clearing, but not as much removal. And I think, we've had 2 winters in a row where there's just been so much snow that removal alone won't deal with it. And, I think we maybe need to come to terms with the reality of like, hey, with, climate change and more extreme seasons, maybe we need to be better prepared for removal and be prepared to pay a little bit more in advance so that everyone can move effectively and safely, at least within a week after a major snow event like that. I agree.
So what do you think of this? I'm curious for your thoughts on this theory I'm holding right now. Okay. So I feel like possibly, this is pure speculation on my part. Lauren wants me to emphasize that. But the Brad Bradford social media noise about the city prioritizing bike lanes over streets, which I thought was ludicrous. I texted him as much, and I showed him photos of these mountains that were showing up on my bike lanes. Birmingham's got these bike lanes, separated bike lanes that I used for a variety of purposes.
Fantastic
that were unusable.
Yep.
Unusable. Okay. What if the optics from that caused the city to possibly, I don't know, not clear these bike lanes appropriately for a fear it would look like the bike lanes were being favored over the streets and the sidewalks?
That's a hypothesis for sure. Yeah.
That is a hypothesis.
I think though this goes to the culture war aspect of this, right? It's like
fucking hated, Michael.
It's like we can't have, are you allowed to swear on your own podcast?
I just did because I find it, and literally I'm not I don't know. I find it frustrating that we politicize cycling to a point where all my conservative, even I mentioned Nick Iones, but I had to I had to explain to him that I would like my 10-year-old to be safe cycling this city.
Yep.
Is that a radical request from this bleeding heart lefty Toronto Mike? But it is so, and I like to think, by the way, if I were a huge Pierre Poilievre fan, I would still love cycling because it's good for my mental health, my physical health, and it's good for my wallet, and it's fun.
Oh,
but,
yeah. No.
But I hate this culture war, cyclists versus the right. I hate it.
Yeah. And again, I'm not even sure if it's as left, right as that. It seems like it's just this, it's just become this like easy to use wedge issue on kind of like anything to amplify a kind of populist sort of message. I think it's just more like
a red meat
populist
thing we talked about earlier.
Yeah, and it then makes it hard to actually have reasonable conversations about things. Like to your point, yes, maybe after a major snow event, like bikeways, maybe it's understandable they're not completely clear and passable within 48 hours, 36 hours, or whatever. But like we can't even now talk about like what is a reasonable service standard for this, or even now to your point about like. I don't want the bike lane on Bloor. It's like, well, where do you want it then? And let's have like an actual real conversation about what is or isn't possible and what this looks like. It's now just, now I hate you. You're an idiot. Pinko, soy boy.
Or the one I hear whatever. A lot. And Lanerick likes to, has also heard this and likes to, point it out on his Blue Sky account. I see. But this whole false notion that Nobody in Toronto bikes in the winter.
Right. You just look at. Oh my goodness! Do you follow the those bike share automated social media accounts where they sort of track
I saw
daily?
one recently.
Yeah.
I saw one this past weekend was beautiful, but I do see them sometimes.
Yeah, and like days after the blizzard, there were still thousands of people using bike share, and that was not only with so much infrastructure impassable, but a lot of the stations themselves kind of snowed in, and still thousands of people still trying to get it done.
Thank you for all you're doing at Cycle Toronto, Michael. And I need you to text me the moment you find out that decision's coming down from the court on that appeal by the PC party here.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Thanks so much for having me here. This was a lot of fun. And again, so sorry TTC kept me a little bit late and we couldn't keep chatting more. I probably, got to schedule my trip home, for the next... Gotta start planning that now to get home before dinner. So yeah.
I hope that femur heals up and you can, on a nice day like today, I think it's a high of 12 today. I think it's so pretty clear out there and no ice or snow on the trails. I hope that femur heals up and you get back on two wheels.
Well, let's go for a ride for the spring. How's that sound?
Wanna go for a ride?
There you
What
go.
kind of tunes do you like?
It's just gonna be the last thing I say on this. Music.
You like music? Okay.
I like music. Yeah.
I didn't know. I just was singing some Smashing Pumpkins, and I was thinking, is Michael a pumpkin head? What's going on here?
Wasn't a huge Smashing Pumpkins fan. No. Yeah.
What about when you're a teenager? What radio station are you listening to?
I was listening to a lot of classical music as a teenager.
See, I'm learning more on the way out here. That's very cultured of you.
But actually, it was Nirvana that got me into pop music at the time too. So I started making the switch over around that point. Again, we can do the pop culture episode next time. Talk more about Spielberg and grunge music and everything else under the sun.
I love it. Thanks for being here. I did, you were late, but I did say we'd have to wrap by 3:30 because I have to do another recording. But we're gonna have a sequel to this episode because I love to hear what's going on at Cycle Toronto, and this is a issue near and dear to my heart.
Thank you. And I'll just say in the last part of this, if you love cycling infrastructure in this city, tell your city councilor. Tell your city councilor you want more. We have a municipal election coming up. Tell the mayor you want more. Just let them know, just reject this culture war and let's have real grown-up conversations about how to move through our city.
Absolutely. And with Ed Keenan, we're going to discuss what's going on with that lawsuit against Amber Morley. I think that's a terrible precedent if you can sue a councilor for it's Crooked Q guys, right? Who am I angry at in this?
That's my understanding.
Fuck that place. I'm not accepting their money if they want to sponsor Toronto Mike. I'm getting angry over here. Okay, Michael, you were great in your Toronto Mike debut. We're gonna take a photo by Toronto Tree. I'm gonna get you a palma pasta lasagna. You got your beer. Maybe one day we'll kick out the classical jams. Who knows what's in store for us. And thanks to Marcosor for connecting us and making this happen. That's how it works in the TMU, the Toronto Mike universe. So much love to Marcosor.
Thanks, Mark.
And that brings us to the end of our 1,861st show. Go to torontomike.com for all your Toronto Mike needs. Much love to all who made this possible. That's Great Lakes Brewery, Palma Pasta, Nick Ieni's, RecycleMyElectronics.ca, and Ridley Funeral Home. Let me see who's coming up here. Oh, tomorrow it's the return of Dan O'Toole. We'll see how Dan is doing. And then on Wednesday, it's a doubleheader. It's unbelievable to me. They're not together. They're going to be one's at 1 o'clock. That's Stu Stone. And then that evening at about 6:45 p.m., Cam Gordon drops by to talk about his new book, Track Changes. A lot going on in the TMU this week. See you all then.